Welcome to the Greyhawk DJC podcast. In today's podcast, we speak with Jeremy Puckett, the owner of Overdrive Pickleball. We hope you enjoy the podcast. Hey, Jeremy, how you doing?
Doing good. Good to see you, David.
Thank you for doing this. I reached out to you out of the blue, and you replied. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to.
Awesome. So you're the owner of Overdrive Pickleball.
Yep.
I've never seen a business based upon pickleball, so this is going to be really interesting. Tell us about Overdrive, what it's about.
Yeah, so back a few years ago, I got into the sport of pickleball, actually 2017, so 8 years ago. Just as a player, I kind of accidentally fell into it. They built some courts in my neighborhood. I was at the pool with my kids, saw the courts, and I was like, what is this? And walked over there, and nobody was playing at the time. At first, I thought they were tennis courts, and I realized, like, no, these are much smaller. This is something different. And just saw the sign pickleball and kind of searched it online to see what this was all about. And I was like, oh, this looks interesting. So started playing and competing in tournaments shortly after that when I figured out that was actually a thing. So it was a fun outlet. And, as I got more proficient in the sport, I saw that there was kind of a need around that coaching side. There wasn't really much of that going on, particularly here in Dallas or in the Metroplex. And I had a large coaching background from soccer. I'd done that for a little over 20 years. And so I thought, well, maybe this is an opportunity here, and started to talk with my local HOA about signing a contract to be, an exclusive instructor for our community, and they bought into it and started the business from there after we got that contract signed and moving on from that part.
Oh, wow. And did you have any clue how big it was in the neighborhood before you started?
So, yeah, I mean, we had we had 3 courts there, and they were regularly full. I mean, we had a large group of players that would meet there 3-4 times a week to play. And there was a decent amount of what I would call like beginner to intermediate players, or what we in the coaching world kind of call improver players. So those are the ones that typically you would see would be interested in, contacting a coach or working with a coach to improve their skills and get better. And there's kind of like that separation of like recreational players and competitive players that play in tournaments. And there's generally people from both that want instruction when they know there's like good coaching around. And so just started to kind of tap into that at those local courts there. Yeah.
Okay. What made you think that there might be people that would want coaching in the neighborhood, I guess? So like what did something trigger you to say, oh, I could do this? Or
yeah. So, I mean, a lot of times when I was out at those courts playing, at the time I was 40 years old. I was one of the younger players.
Okay.
So, a lot of times I was asked about certain aspects of the sport. I kind of became a student of the sport, right? I learned very much about, the strategies and really kind of dove into it. I met a lot of people playing tournaments that, were high level players, and kind of learned some tips and tricks and things like that. And when other players saw me doing those things, they were intrigued by it and kind of wanted to just understand more about it. And so I was starting to get asked more regularly, like, hey, can you help me with this?
Right.
Or I'm really struggling with my serve or with this. Can you help me? And I think just the coaching background I had from soccer, and I do a lot of people development stuff in my full-time job, was just kind of a natural transition to that. And I was like, I probably should be charging for this.
When did you get your first real client, I guess, or did the HOA help you?
So, interesting story. So I early in 2020, so this was like January, I decided I think I'm going to do this and start this coaching side up. And I wanted to get certified first. So there's a couple of organizations within pickleball that do coaching certifications.
Okay.
There was one in particular, Professional Pickleball Registry, or PPR, which they've been around in the tennis world for many, many years, and they kind of just gotten into pickleball maybe the year before that. And so I went and worked with them, got certified to coach, which kind of gives you that methodology or framework really to like how to structure lessons, that kind of thing.
What does the certification make you do to get certified?
So they look at your skill level. There's some on-court sessions that you do with an instructor.
So you literally have to play with somebody.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. For sure. Because they want to test where you're at in that skill level piece, but also just see how they make you run an actual session with other students. Using their methodology that they teach you throughout that course.
Okay.
Because they obviously want to make sure that you're being consistent as you work through those lessons and teaching, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So I gotten certified in January of that year of 2020 with intention, and I had signed that contract with the HOA, I think in February, with the intention of starting right then.
So this is all pre-planned by you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And then March of that year, COVID hit.
Oh, wonderful.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
So, that was an interesting time, obviously, for a lot of things. So during those first few months, I really because the courts were kind of shut down, they weren't really, and that was really for a couple months, I would say. They weren't really letting people out on the courts, that kind of thing, because we didn't know, obviously, what was going on. Mm-hmm. And I took that time to really kind of dive into what was I going to offer, because I didn't want to just do private lessons, like one-on-one individual, because it's okay. It's time consuming, and your clientele is kind of limited in that sometimes. And I wanted to have more of like a different core offering than maybe what some other people were doing. So I started to develop these kind of small group sessions, these 4-person groups, like for beginners and intermediate players. And that quickly took off as I started doing those kind of later in 2020, and then really in 2021 is when those ramped up.
How'd you get the word out about your services?
So initially through the HOA, I had advertisement on their website for the page that was around that involved the courts and everything. And then I started engaging with some Facebook groups, built a Facebook business page, got a Google business profile set up, those kind of things, just to kind of, and started putting some content out there.
Okay.
Not a lot, but a lot of it was more just engaging with the community. I already knew a bunch of people, that were in our community that played at those courts, and it was kind of like a word of mouth thing after I started doing a few of those groups and stuff. Yeah.
Right. So when did you get your first clients then, I guess, real clients?
So that was after they reopened the courts, probably I'd say it was like May, June. It was in the summer of 2020.
Okay.
And I was actually one of the guys he was on the HOA board, so he knew he helped get me, get the contract signed, and he and his wife play. So they were like, hey, we want to be your first one. I was like, okay, let's go. So we did that.
Nice. Yeah.
He played in a group in the morning with other players, similar skill level, and he kind of got the word to them. I had a few of them come over, and then it kind of just started expanding from there. And then on the Facebook groups, I was putting information out there about, hey, this is what I'm offering. This is who I am. And there, at the time, up in McKinney, Frisco, Plano, there really wasn't anybody teaching lessons. It was very rare. One, because there weren't a lot of courts to teach on, and you can't, like, a lot of the public facilities won't let you just go to a court and start teaching there.
Right.
The cities don't really want you doing that. There's people that do it, but that's typically not, what they want. So,
Right.
So it was kind of a unique thing that I had this contract, and I had nice dedicated courts. They weren't like temporary courts or something like that. So
nice. And then on your website, you also offer other services. So how did that happen, I guess?
Yeah. So that was a little later on. So I'd say 2023 is when I started to get asked more frequently here in the Metroplex. People would come to me and talk to me like, hey, I want to open an indoor facility like the one we're at today.
Right.
And they were like, what do you know about that? And so I would start talking to them. And I'm very passionate about just courts in general, because we've got courts that are built, like in our HO ones are a perfect example. When they initially built them, they didn't build them the correct size.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't consult with players or anybody that knew. They just found a court contractor and like, oh, this looks good. Well, the fence was like 2 feet from the baseline. There's literally like no room to play. So they ended up having to extend the pad like 5 or 6 feet. So as I started to learn those little things that were like nuances about facilities, that if you did it this way, players would like it better. I kind of started to take notes on those things. And so as people started asking me, I'm like, I think there's a service here. And so I started doing some facility consulting and working with different entities that were looking to build and do these types of things. So.
Are there enough courts here in Dallas where you can kind of maintain those services?
So I would say, it's interesting because like the facility we're at today, the Pickler, is a franchise, right? So they have a lot of those resources already. Although I would say they've even reached out to certain people like me to learn or to understand some of these things that they need to change or do better as they build newer facilities. Because if you look at their older facilities, they're not painted in the same color scheme. They're a little different. And there's certain things like that they've altered over time.
Okay.
A lot of the smaller facilities and even the cities, like I've worked with a couple of the cities here on their public facilities, because the cities are typically the ones that don't know, like they have, bureaucrats doing that stuff, right? They don't know what a pickleball court's supposed to look like or what makes good, flow for people when they're coming in, that kind of thing.
But there's a place you can go to see the dimensions and everything, right?
Yeah,
right.
That's like the most basic part of getting it set up. So, and the people even fail at that. So, but even like for here at the Pickler, we have, very dark walls. We have black walls. There's a reason for that because it's the highest contrast to the yellow ball. Right. So in other facilities where you may have white walls or yellow colored walls or something, it's very hard to see or track the ball in those indoor facilities because it blends in with the background.
So officially the balls need to be yellow?
It's like a yellow or like fluorescent green kind of color. But so there's little things like that are annoyances to players.
Right.
That people that are just starting a business or maybe not play themselves don't really have awareness of.
Would they ever use darker balls then or something, or is that
those do exist, but it's not like the norm. It's not like what people like. You wouldn't use that at tournaments and things like that. So it's the ball's becoming a little more standard, I would say. It used to be they were kind of all over the place, but we're starting to see more standardization in that.
Right. Okay, so you do the coaching, you do the sessions, individual, you consult on the courts, facilities. And then I think I saw it said you also help with like driving revenue models for some of these businesses.
Yeah, so a lot of that goes into the facility consulting. So if you think about some of these facilities want to have multiple revenue streams, so that can come from a variety of different things. That can come from food and beverage, that can come from lessons, clinics, that can come from private events, all kind of different things that you can use a facility like this for.
Right.
Some places choose not to have food and beverage for obvious reasons, and others may not even think about some of those other revenue streams. Like here at the Pickler, one of the big ones has been like corporate events and things like that. So
right.
There's been a lot of things like that they've kind of discovered over time, and so as I've learned about those things, I've advised on that or used that to work with these facility owners to figure out new ways to earn revenue in these places, because it's you got a big building, you got to heat and cool it, and and there's a lot of expense there, so you want to make sure you're maximizing time and the revenue pieces on it. So
and now you've been doing this about it's 2006, 2025, about 5 years now.
The coaching part,
right.
Yep.
The other consulting stuff, what, 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, like I said, it was probably like mid to late 2023, I'd say, when I started that. So about 2 years. Probably.
What is your outreach like right now? Are you advertising, or is it mostly word of mouth?
Mainly through the website.
Okay.
Yeah, I, because I've got kind of a full-time career too, and like doing this, alongside that, it hasn't been something that I've pushed super hard on. I do get calls. It's interesting. I get calls from, like, I had a guy reach out to me from like Montana the other day.
Oh, wow.
Like that's building a facility up there. So I would say there's not a lot of people in that space yet, doing that type of thing. So it's been interesting. I mean, I get I get calls from people all over the country for that kind of stuff sometimes. So
Right. And
it's not just here in Dallas. Yeah.
absolutely. So let's talk about pickleball because I just remember it was like maybe 2 years ago. Suddenly, half of my friends were like, "Let's go play pickleball," and I'm like, "What the heck is this?"
Yeah.
Right? I just came out of nowhere. Just from a layman's point of view, it seems like a smaller version of tennis,
Yeah.
but it's not really.
No.
Maybe tennis and ping pong kind of mashed together.
Badminton's another one that gets thrown in there
Right.
as kind of a mashup of those kind of sports.
So tell us the history behind this. How did it just suddenly get on the scene?
Yeah.
It's still in its infancy, kind of, right?
Yeah.
And then
So quick little just history background lesson on it, I would say. It started in the mid 60s.
Seriously?
Yep.
Wow.
In Washington State, Bainbridge Island up there.
Was there a person that made this?
Yeah,
or-
there was actually a couple of like dads that lived out there, and they had kids, and they had an old badminton court, and the court actually still exists today. You can go visit it. It's called Court Number 1. But they kind of they're like, hey, here's a plastic wiffle ball. We'll cut you some paddles out of a piece of plywood. Try this, and they kind of evolved the rules over time. And,
Okay.
there were tournaments, I would say, even back in the 70s, just very small scale, kind of stuff. And, they started to see it grow a lot in like retirement communities. So you saw a lot of it in Florida. There was a high concentration. There was a lot in Arizona, a lot in California, and in the Northwest. But
And is that mostly because it's more of a quick reaction sport instead of a running around sport?
Yeah, and there's definitely some of both.
Right.
But because it was primarily set up as a doubles sport on a much smaller court, you didn't have to cover as much surface area. Right, with running and that kind of thing. So, back then I would say, skill outweighed athleticism. We're starting to see that change today, but as the sport progressed, I would say, when I started playing in 2017, it was still very much, I'd say the average age in the sport at that time was probably people in their 40s. And so like when I would play tournaments, the 35 and up age bracket, or 35 to 50, was the most competitive bracket.
Okay.
Like there were no players in the 19 to 35. You couldn't find anybody.
Right.
Like, so now that's not the case.
Right.
The average age has dropped tremendously. So we really didn't see it take off though as a sport until COVID hit. And I think there are a few factors involved there. One was it was one of the few things you could do that governments even allowed you to really kind of participate in,
because they're outside.
You're outside. You're far enough away from each other. That kind of thing. That was a big piece because everybody else, you didn't have anything else to do. Right. So might as well go out and do an activity with your friends.
Right.
So the second part that really helped it explode during that time period is just the social aspect of it. It's a very social sport. It's because you're so close in proximity when you're playing, you can have conversations with people, you can trash talk, you can do all these kind of things that are fun. And it's one of those sports that it's impossible to play without laughing. There's always something funny that happens on the court.
Sure.
So those things I think really allowed it to expand very quickly during that time period. So we saw just massive spike in player participation at that time.
Right.
Which obviously good timing for me coming into it, as a coach. But these last couple of years, we've really seen the proliferation of the pro game. So there were a couple of investors that really came in, I'd say, and it was right around COVID, 2020, 2021, that started up a couple of these pro tours. That really, and they brought in big money to these things.
So they're competing tours right now?
There's a couple of competing tours. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and both of them have done a great job, I would say, with how they've handled, they've gone about it kind of in two different approaches, but, they've been able to bring in large investors. They've got celebrities buying into some of these teams and things like that. So, there's a lot of money coming in on that side, and they've been able to now pay the players more, which has been fantastic. It used to be that these players had they had full-time jobs.
Right.
Now a lot of them, this is all they do. They're committed playing pickleball, and that's what they're going to do.
And you're saying some like the top pros are making 7 figures, and
yeah. So I would say those ones that are in that top 5 are definitely making that with endorsements and salary money. But the ones in the top 20 or so are also have nice contracts, I would say, on the pro tours that are in that 6-figure range.
And these contracts are signed with their teams, right?
So
or the tour.
So there's the team environment, which is Major League Pickleball, and then there's the PPA, which is the biggest pro tour.
Okay.
And so they kind of have contracts for each one that they do.
Oh, so you can hop back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So those two companies have merged, and so they kind of have some interesting. Sometimes they require them to play both, kind of thing.
I see.
So it just kind of depends if it's a player that's drafted into that team environment.
And so you could end up playing your teammate.
You could, yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, so that makes some interesting dynamic.
That actually happens a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So you have these tournaments, these leagues. They're making a lot of money now. People are specializing in the sport, right? Why haven't we seen a lot of commercialization of it yet, or have we? And I'm just not aware of this.
It's starting to happen more. If you pay attention to it, you'll notice it more. And what I mean by that is, like, you'll see a lot of commercials now on TV or on streaming services. Mm-hmm. Particularly, like, you see it a lot with like drug commercials, which is kind of weird. They'll have pickleball players like in the background. A lot of times, if it's like a senior focus,
right.
which annoys me, but that's what it is. So you'll see a lot of that. But I would say you're starting to just see it proliferate into those spaces, I would say.
Okay.
It's not as commercialized maybe as some other things, but I would say, particularly these larger indoor facilities, as they're coming in, we're seeing more of that that advertisement type of stuff come out.
Right.
Yep.
And you were also talking about like kids are starting to train to maybe go to college and have scholarships, and that's happening, right?
Yeah. So I was at a global conference for coaches with the PPR this past February, and was talking to some other coaches there, and I was telling them how I'm teaching a lot of juniors now, and that's kind of my focus. And a couple of the guys work at universities there's one in Indiana and another one I want to say in Michigan that already have they're NAIA schools, and that's probably where we'll see it grow the fastest because it's easier for them to add sports, where in NCAA it's not. So they've already got scholarship positions for players on their pickleball teams, which is fantastic. So we're starting to see. So parents take note of those things, right? And a couple of years ago, I was telling some people it was much harder to get kids to take lessons because they were already heavily invested in soccer, basketball, football, whatever their sport was, right? And so, why would they go over and start playing pickleball? That interferes with this other thing. And I coached soccer for a long time, so I get it. But a lot of these kids that we're seeing now are ones that they're in that 10 to 12-year-old range where they have, as a athlete, have decided pickleball is going to be my sport, and that's what they want to do. So, they're up here 5-6 days a week or more, playing and training and doing that sort of thing.
Is DFW one of the hotbeds in the country?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. We've got the PPA, which is the largest pro tour. The guy who runs that and the owner of that company, along with some other companies around the sport, live here in Dallas.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's a national company.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They actually have. I mean, they do some events around the globe too. It's not just here in the U.S. But yeah, they're both located here, which is nice. Austin's another hotbed area right now where we've got a lot of pro players that live there, and then there's a couple of places in Florida, like the Tampa area.
I see.
Or south of there a little bit. There's probably 30 or 40 high level pros that live there.
Have you heard of any? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying they've kind of started to concentrate in some of these areas, because I think what these pros have learned is that it's easier for them to train with other pros as opposed to being out on an island somewhere where you don't really have access to high level play. Right.
So, are there any talks about making like a televised league or something like that, or getting it on TV?
It's already, I mean, ESPN carries.
Seriously?
Yeah, ESPN, CBS Sports. It's all over YouTube streaming as well. But The TV contracts have started. That's a more recent thing. So there's actually even a dedicated channel, Pickleball TV.
Because that's where the money comes from typically for sports,
a lot of the
right?
TV contracts.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Pickleball TV, which is owned by Tennis Channel, is a dedicated channel now. You can get it on Amazon Prime. It's on there. And it streams pickleball matches 24/7 pretty much. I mean, some it's obviously replay, but they have all the current tournaments and things like that are all streamed on that.
Right, right. And you were saying, like, when we were talking earlier, the top player is a teenage girl, right?
Yep.
So when you say top, you mean like the best player or the most earning
She's the
player?
most dominant player in the sport. Let's put it like male or female.
Really?
So she's won more tournaments, medals than any other player. Yeah.
Wow. So talk about why you think there's not that big of a discrepancy between the male and female players, and because there's not a lot of sports like that.
It's not. It's not as dramatic as like tennis or other sports, I would say. I think it's primarily because our sport is a doubles version, really. Like, and we do obviously have singles, and that's its own kind of beast, but the primary version of pickleball is doubles play.
Okay.
So, and because you're not covering a ton of court, the court's a quarter the size of a tennis court. So you don't need as much power, as much, strength necessarily. So like a lot of times we'll say like precision beats power in pickleball. So like if you're very accurate with your shot making ability and that kind of thing, you can typically be a very high level player.
Are they finessing the ball when they hit it? Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, right? So, and as there's been a lot of technological advances in the sport around the paddles and things like that over the last 2 years, I would say. So
what's the rule around that? The paddles?
That's a whole other thing to get into, I'd say. But there's different testing things that they do on them around like deflection and the surface grit and things like that. But they've kind of like softened the rules on some of that over time. Like it used to be the paddles were super slick, like you couldn't get any spin. It was, just the core technology, the stuff like the inside of the paddles was just very basic, and it didn't allow for a lot of power and that kind of thing. So the game has now changed, almost done a 180, where it's now very much a power and attacking game, where it used to be a very defensive, slower game.
Is that on purpose?
Tennis went through similar things, right? So
is that on purpose to make it more attractive, I guess?
I don't know that it was on purpose. I think it was more just the paddle companies trying to be innovative.
I see.
Right, and differentiate themselves from the other paddle companies. So that as competition entered that space, like when I first started playing, there was basically like 4 major paddle companies. That was it. Now I don't even know how many. I mean, there's hundreds.
Right.
And they all are trying to do little different things. So when you have competition like that, obviously innovation typically happens.
Is there a governing body that checks for all that when you enter the tournament, I guess?
So they haven't done a great job at that, but they're figuring, because that testing equipment's expensive.
Right.
And so they're working on better ways to do that. And there's been some paddles that have been delisted or taken off the approved list because of certain things. They're too powerful or too much grit on them or whatever.
Right.
So there's been things like that have happened too. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's still ever evolving. There's no set standard yet, really.
Yeah, and I would say, as a coach and business owner, for me, that's exciting, right? I mean, like, one of the coolest things to me about the sport is that it's what we call an unsolved sport.
Right.
Right. It's still like I have these juniors that come out, and I just, I coach them 2 days a week, and I'll see them on Monday, and then when they come back on Wednesday, I'll see them hit a shot, and I'm like, I've never seen you do that before. And he's like, well, I just tried it out. And, and so it's like juniors a lot of times will take risks that adults won't take, because there's no fear, right? There's no repercussion, that kind of deal. So they're still innovating shots in the game that we haven't even seen the pros do sometimes. So there's a lot of interesting things like that. Another example I would say was I traveled to Europe. I went and coached on a tour in Spain last year, and I played with some local players there who a lot of them play a lot of them play tennis, but a lot of them also play padel, which is another emerging racket sport, which is kind of a combination of racquetball and tennis. And there's a lot of different shots in padel. And these guys were coming over to pickleball and using some of the skills they had from padel to create new shots in pickleball I'd never seen before. And so, it's little things like little nuances that people bring from other types of sports into pickleball have kind of continued to evolve the game too. So as a coach, that's exciting to me because you got to stay on top of your content and like what you're teaching, because what you taught 6 months ago is probably not super relevant, or all of it's not going to be relevant today.
Oh, wow.
Even.
So techniques and strategies are always changing.
The strategy piece for sure has changed a lot.
Wow. What's the biggest change you think? Or
kind of like I was mentioning before, just from being a very like passive defensive play game to now much more attacking.
Right.
And so because the paddles are allowing you to do that more, you can take a ball that's much lower off the ground, and because you can create spin now and a lot more power with the paddle, you can use that to hit shots you just couldn't really do 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
So it's changed a lot of the attacking principles and the way that we kind of coach that stuff. So that's been that along with just the increase in athleticism that's needed now has been a big change.
Right, because there's people that are doing this only on purpose, right? Just pickleball. So they're going to just get more specialized and good. And
especially the juniors, because their learning curve is, it's so much quicker.
Right.
They're still growing in their own bodies, right? Everything too. So, but they pick up technique and skill and those kind of things so much faster. And they're innovative too.
Do you think the sport will be like really different in a couple of years, just on the pace of the game?
I wouldn't say really different. Okay. I think we've kind of not necessarily hit a plateau, but like that speed of change has probably slowed.
Okay.
The only thing that, if something happens with the paddle technology, like if I think at some point, probably here very soon, they're going to have to kind of cap like how powerful you can make these paddles, and or they do something to the ball that maybe slows the game down a little bit. There's been a lot of talks around those things around the sport, but there's ways to control that change, I would say. But I think the reason why we saw so much change in these early years, or these last few years, was that you had much younger demographic coming into the sport, much more athletic. And players that were dedicated to just playing pickleball, right. Whereas as opposed to like it's just a hobby, or I'm a weekend warrior type of player.
Because you were saying that the age is much younger.
Oh yeah,
for the best players, right?
Most of the top pros in the game are no older than I'd say late 20s. There's some exceptions to that, but, right? Most of the top players are in their mid 20s, I would say.
I see.
Yeah.
See, so if someone's thinking about putting their child into pickleball or getting into themselves, what are your recommendations? How do you find a good coach? What do you think they should be doing?
So I think first of all, it's finding a good place to play, and what I mean by that is like what's going to meet your needs, right? So for some people, an indoor facility is nice, right? Because it's climate controlled and you're not out in the Texas heat, dying out there right now where it's 100 degrees. But it's expensive too, so it's what you want to commit. I think for most people, if you haven't really tried the sport, it's just going out to a local, there's a lot of public facilities that are free, and have good, what I would say, community around pickleball. Like there's usually other experienced players out there that will help you learn, or at least get you started.
Okay.
And then from there, it's reaching out to, if you want further instruction, it's just asking or looking around for different coaches. That could be as simple as a Google search, or if you ask other experienced players, most of them know some local coaches, type of thing, and then go from there.
Is certification important, you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for a couple reasons. So there are a lot of people that have seen this as an opportunity and want to come into coaching, and maybe don't always do it for the right reasons. And I think my personal belief on like just coaching in general is that you have to really enjoy skill development with people. Like if you don't like that, probably shouldn't be coaching.
Right.
And so that's something I've just been passionate about since I was a teenager. So like I spend a lot of time and investment on getting back, continuing to get better at that too. But yeah, the coaching side of it, you can find good coaches in a lot of different areas. I think it's just, asking somebody do you know somebody that has experience in this? And then when you start to look into that coach, make sure, that certification piece becomes important because that at the very least they have insurance.
Yeah.
Because that's what the certifications provide.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Part of it. And you also know that they've at least taken a step to better themselves in terms of their knowledge around the sport.
Right.
Right. Certification isn't everything. A lot of people can go and get certified, but that's like the most basic step I would say a coach needs to take.
What are the major certifications again?
So a lot of those organizations like PPR, there's a couple others out there. They provide that methodology for how you should instruct and that kind of thing. A lot of them have different levels of instruction. So like for me, I'm a level 2 instructor, which is the highest level that they have in pickleball right now. I was actually part of that pilot group that did that a couple of years ago with PPR. But so there are different levels like that. Some of them call it like recreational or pro, that kind of thing. So you can look for those different things as well.
I see. Yeah. I see. And then, I think a good way to end this is like, tell us about where you want to take Overdrive and what your future plans are, I guess.
Yeah. So, I have a lot of ideas around this and I'm kind of doing some what I would call testing in different areas to see where some of this goes. And, as I've kind of thought about the evolution of the sport, that the junior development piece is going to continue to be a big piece for me. Here at the Pickler, I just kind of took over that kind of our elite players at the junior level, and we've got a good group of them now. That one of them is actually one of the top players in the country at the junior level. So it's been exciting, kind of working with juniors again. I did that a lot, obviously in soccer, but these kids, they're great kids. They work hard. They're super passionate about this being their sport, and I'm also in the process of like looking to like mentor other coaches too.
Okay.
To be able to expand that a little bit because I'm only one person, right?
Right.
I can only do so much when it comes to taking on new clients or new students. So that coaching content piece is an interesting part because I think a lot of people don't realize how much work it goes into developing content for lessons, right? So I'm not just going out there and like with a basket of balls and just hitting balls at players. Right. So for me, my philosophy around coaching and development has always been about teaching the why. Right. So when I go out and I'm working with kids or adults, it's helping them understand not only how to execute the shot or execute that play, but why we also do it. Right. So because pickleball is about problem solving. And if we can't teach that or show them how to do those things, you're only really teaching like 30% of what they need to do. Right. So for me, like that coaching content piece, I've developed a lot of stuff that I would say is unique to my offering, but it's also something that can be replicated. And so there's some different things I'm looking at around that and how I can maybe get that to other coaches to help them get a business started or to get going in the sport. Because that was probably the single thing that took me the longest to figure out and get good at, because it takes a lot of practice. Right? It's you're consuming a lot of content around the sport too, and watching a lot of matches and analysis of matches and things like that to really understand strategy and how it changes and how you adapt to different opponents, that kind of thing. So
where can people find your content right now?
So I mean, for me, you can obviously reach out to me on my website, overdrivepickleball.com, and I have a lot of discussions with people around that kind of stuff, and there's things I put out on Facebook and Instagram too. But a lot of it right now is really working with other like-minded people in the game that want to push the game forward. Because from the coaching side, I think we have kind of like two camps. There's people that are very traditional and teach the game like it was 10 years ago. We have people, which is the camp I'm in, which is trying to move the game forward.
Right.
And it's being innovative, taking risks, that kind of thing. So
I see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been eye-opening. I could not have imagined pickleball was this big right now and how much money is going into the sport. But thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
And best of luck with Overdrive.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thanks.